American football collegiate coach Bear Bryant is said to have once remarked, "Offense wins games, but defense wins championships." Hello everyone, it's Rev Brad here. On today's episode of From the Touchline, we've got a very special treat for you. I record a phone interview with a special guest who's going to come give us some insight into the beautiful game from a defensive point of view. So don't go away, we get stuck in after this.
Space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post, and you're at the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Well, I want to welcome a good friend and special guest with me today, Jared Watts. Jared, welcome to the podcast.
Brad, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. Been looking forward to it.
This is neat. So, Jared, maybe for some folks that don't know you, give us a quick rundown of your soccer background and career. You know, where'd you get your start? Who'd you play for? What are some of your personal faves and highlights throughout your days in the game?
Yeah, for sure. I can go just kind of a quick version of my background, and, I won't bore you too much here, but, I grew up in North Carolina. I had two older brothers that played soccer and just kind of fell into it, wanted to do what the little brothers wanted to do and follow their older brothers. So I started playing just kind of local teams. I grew up in a small town outside of Charlotte. I started playing and kind of realized that, hey, I like it. I loved it. I played all sports growing up, but then I started to take it a little bit more serious, did some traveling on some local clubs, and then went and played for a bigger club in Charlotte, and just kind of got recognized by some ODP teams, and so I went on kind of the ODP route, so state team, regional team, and then I got some exposure to some youth national teams, and starting at about U14 youth national teams, kind of worked my way up, and eventually got invited down to the residency program down in Bradenton, Florida. So I was a sophomore in high school. I was 15 and went down and lived in Bradenton at IMG and played.
Wow.
With,
what was that like?
It was an awesome experience. I mean, coming from a small town, if you had told me, hey, you're going to go away for high school and you're going to play soccer and you're, going to be part of a youth national team and eventually play in a Youth World Cup, I would have thought, yeah, I don't think that's probably going to happen to me, but hey, we'll go for it. So, just kind of worked my way up and was able to go live down there and train. And some of my best friends are still, people that I've made connections with down there. And obviously it's funny later on as I played in MLS, you play guys that you played with on the youth national team. So it was pretty cool to have that experience.
So Jared, what kind of position did you play throughout your career? Did you play them all? Like where'd you play on the field?
Yeah. I was always kind of in a defensive position, I never really was the guy to go up and score a lot of goals. So, with the youth national teams, I played some defensive center mid, center back, and then, when I went to college as well at Wake Forest and played some defensive center mid and then center back as well. And then same thing, got drafted in Colorado and Houston. I played probably 80% at center back, and I played a little bit of holding mid as well, but it was always kind of a defensive position. So I guess for me, I never really got a lot of the glory of scoring a lot of goals.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, you did score a goal, though, right? So
I scored a couple. Yeah.
Let's talk about Saturday night, July 11th, 2015. I was there. You score your first professional goal. Talk us through that goal and your memory of it. What do you remember from that night, from that moment?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty special moment there. We were playing Salt Lake, so obviously our biggest rival there. It was kind of the last leg there, in order to win the trophy, the Rocky Mountain Cup. That was kind of a big deal. So, I remember it was late in the game. It was a corner kick. I think, long story short, I just happened to be at the right time at the right place. And just kind of, I guess before I even knew it, I was kicking the ball back into the goal. So it was just kind of a quick rebound, and I was able to score, and ended up being the game winner that night. I remember the celebration was a fun one, and got to enjoy it with the teammates on the sideline, and because we had a little bit of a tougher year, but it was a really cool moment, and definitely one that I'll never forget. So, and actually it's funny because that weekend my wife, her parents were in town. It was the first professional game they saw me play, and I asked them that weekend for permission to marry him. So it was a very, very memorable weekend for me.
That's a huge weekend. Now, to be honest, to be fair, I went and I looked at footage of the goal because I was like, I want to be prepared for this. So, Jared, it was a left-footed, one-time. You're rushing into the box. The shot, Ellendu comes off the post. First,
yeah, that's right.
Are you left-footed?
Oh no, I'm not left-footed at all.
Left-footed.
I'm just glad I was close enough. Yeah.
And then
glad I was close enough to the goal.
So it's the weekend that you're asking for your wife's hand in marriage. You score a left-footed, one-time off-the-post goal. Your first and only professional goal. Like, right? That's magic.
Ellendu still. Oh, off the post, yes! Jared Watson is! His first goal in Major League Soccer. And that could be the winner. How happy is he? And how happy are they?
Is it? Well,
yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's
it was
special,
pretty awesome.
Right?
One of my top memories for sure.
Against our rival team. So now I forget. Did we win Rocky Mountain Cup that year?
Yeah, we did.
We
ended up winning. We ended up winning Rocky Mountain Cup that year, so that was pretty cool.
Because we hadn't won that thing in years, and we haven't won it again in years. It's been a long time. I think we've tied a few times, but wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
What a special night. So that, man, you just set the table there. That is truly special, not only because of all the events going on and your in-laws in town and all of that, but I mean, you just, as a defender, a defensive midfielder, you don't really get a whole lot of chances to score, right? That's not your main aim, is it?
No, you don't get a ton of chances, so it's nice when you do have an opportunity, to take advantage of it. But no, as a defender, right? I mean, it's a completely different kind of mindset, which I think makes it a fun position to play. You're not going to get necessarily the glory or anything like that, but it's fun. It's a mindset. It's about kind of, protecting the team, and I think if you kind of go in with that mentality, that makes it pretty special.
Yeah. So say more about that mentality. What makes a great defender? I'm a chaplain for football, for soccer. I've seen a lot of games, but if you're telling me or someone else who has little experience personally, I think as a kid, I played defense for soccer, but that probably had more to do with my athleticism than other things. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what are some things that, if you're going to talk to me or someone else who's not really super knowledgeable about the game, what would you say are some traits of a good defender? What are some things that you would say, hey, look for this? And I know some of it's dependent on coach preference, or maybe some of it's down to systems and tactics, but what are some traits of a good defender? If I'm looking for a good central defender, a defensive midfielder, a center back, what are some of those traits of a good defender in your mind?
Yeah, I think if I could build maybe a quote unquote ideal defender or defensive mid, I think some of the top traits that kind of come to my mind, at least, and not to say that I had all of these, but I think it would be somebody that's very reliable and can deliver, someone who's always proactive and thinking about, how can I help the team when maybe the team isn't thinking about a transition or isn't thinking about a turnover, and just being kind of, someone who's aggressive and wants to just kind of, be a grinder and work hard. And I just think of I think one word that comes to mind is just like a shield. I think that's something that can kind of, be a good adjective or a way to explain a defender, right? Somebody who can shield the team and protect the team. And, for me, I think that's one of the more, I guess, exciting or things that I would look for in a defender, something like that.
I like those traits. Those are, those are just spot on. The reliability piece. It's interesting. I thought maybe you would come in and go, hey, 6'1", kind of like abs of steel, like can get up in the air. Like I thought you were going to give me some of the physical traits, but you've really given us some mentality traits here, some things that, it could be said of a tall player or a shorter player. It doesn't really, these are traits that kind of transcend the physicality of a particular person, male or female. Like these are transcendent traits, really. I mean, these are perfect.
Well, and I think that's what makes soccer just a different type of game, right? I don't think it's necessarily based off of the physical assets of a player. I mean, definitely that helps, right? But I think just back to my career, I mean, gosh, I was never the fastest at all, was never the strongest, was never the most athletic. And the way that I found the field and, made an impact is, hey, I understood my role. I was trying to read the game, smart, reliable, just aggressive, doing whatever it took to help the team out and just, knowing that my team could, trust on me if something were to go wrong. And, I think that's something that soccer gives you that maybe other sports, you don't have that.
Man, that's a powerful word. I think, knowing our limitations, knowing our role, knowing who we are, like those things are pretty key to how we not only play the game, but how we live life, I think, sometimes, too. It helps us stay in our lane. It helps us, live out the fullness of maybe who we're called even to be. So, man, Jared, thanks for those traits.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I try and do on the podcast is I try and talk about, or I try and connect football and faith. And so today's theme is actually God as defender. And I want to share this verse with everyone. In Deuteronomy 32:4, it's a book found in the Old Testament. And in the Good News translation, we read this: "The Lord is your mighty defender, perfect and just in all his ways. Your God is faithful and true. He does what is right and fair." Now, if you read in a different translation, the Hebrew word there is the word for rock. And there are many occurrences in the Bible where God is referred to as our rock. You used it, though, in your word, Jared, you said shield. And oftentimes that imagery that the Hebrew writers would use, they would use rock in the sense of being like a fortress, being a defense, being a protective covering, especially for those who were weak and vulnerable. And it wasn't just a sense of a shield, like we might think of a shield if we're watching like some epic, costume drama or something. No, it has this imagery of permanence and stability like this. I mean, Jared, you lived here in Colorado for a time. You remember seeing the Rocky Mountains, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
The image that the Hebrew writers are using there is this image of like that kind of mountain fortress kind of thing, and saying this is the way God is. He's our defender. He's our rock. He's a defender, and we see this in other places in the Bible too. God is named as a defender of the widow, the orphan. He's a refuge for his people, and it goes on for various people that we might say are vulnerable or susceptible to attack or other things. So in this text, we learn that God is our mighty defender. So Jared, that gets me wanting to ask you a couple other questions. Like, well, one, who's the best defender you've ever played with? Like on any of your teams, like even going back to those youth club teams, was there ever a guy or person that you got matched up with and you're like, man, this is my defensive buddy. This is my defensive partner. Like, we're unstoppable. Like, who's the best defender you ever played with on one of those teams?
Man, that's a good question. I think first that just comes to mind is probably my most recent year of playing in Houston when DeMarcus Beasley was playing left back. And, I was right there beside him and playing center back next to him. And just, I'm looking over at this guy, and I watched him play in all these World Cups growing up. And, now I'm playing right beside him, and he's just, was just an incredible player. Literally, I'd probably say almost a perfect soccer player if there could be one. Just the way that he played, he read the game, his reliability, his work ethic. He was a captain, but he was just, for me, it was one of the best that I played for or played with. But then I think back of my time at the Rapids in 2016, right, where, as a team we set defensive records in MLS. And, think of playing beside Axel, all those games in 2016 and with Miller on one side and Birch on the other. And I think just that was a special group, a defensive group with, Azir and Cronin in front of us. But I think, it just shows you that a defender can be all kinds of, shapes, sizes. It can be unorthodox. It can, you can get the job done in a lot of different ways. And so, those are just a few that kind of come to mind thinking of people that I've played with.
Sure. Now, is there someone that you kind of modeled your game after? Is there someone that you talked about looking up to Beasley, but is there someone who was in your role, your position, and you kind of said, man, I'm going to work hard like them. Like they were your model. They were the example. They were the bar that you kind of set yourself against. Was there anyone like that?
I'd probably say as an American player, just as I started, concentrating on center back and playing it more, it was probably Carlos Bocanegra, who, at the time was captain of the national team and, just a really good player who had a lot of experience. And, I think he was very visible when I was kind of coming up and was an awesome center back. So I'd say probably from the American standpoint was Carlos Bocanegra. But, I don't know. I think, my game was, I wouldn't say it was modeled after anybody. It was just kind of unconventional. I just, it was just for me, it was just a mindset of no matter what, wherever I was, whenever I was playing, it was just, leaving it all out there, playing hard. And, I think that's what makes a defender, it's fun to play defense because I think there's a little bit more pressure on you as the attacking people can mess up, and it doesn't really show. But as a defender, let's say you make a mistake, and it's going to show. So I think that's the part of it I enjoyed, and got to battle against some of the best players that got to play against in MLS, these different forwards, and it was just a good experience.
So who were you most afraid of? Like you were matched up against probably some unique people throughout Major League Soccer and those professional times. But for yourself, was there ever anyone on the opposing team and you're like, oh, this is going to be a tough game today? And it helped you get up for that game. It helped you get ready. Like who would you say that was? Like maybe give us a top three. Like who were the top three forwards or offensive juggernauts that you were going up against?
I think it would just top of my list would probably be, Wondolowski from San Jose, just knowing that his movement, you give him a chance in front of goal, he's probably going to score it. So that was always somebody I look forward to playing against. He kind of kept you on the top of your game. I'd say probably Clint Dempsey when he was in Seattle was up there as far as just battling and, the competitive spirit that he would show. That was always, somebody who I enjoyed going against. And then also I remember a couple of pretty good battles with Fernando Adi out, when he was out in Portland, and he was probably twice the size of me as far as weight and stature. And, I was just like, hey, I'm going to have to battle all night. It was fun. And we kind of had some pretty intense back and forth. And, it's definitely somebody I knew and was excited to compete against there.
Sure. Yeah, those are some pretty physical guys in terms of Adi and Wondolowski especially. So, well, you mentioned this, Jared. You said that as a defender, there's a different mentality, and you talked about bees like reading the game. So I imagine you have to be aware of particular vulnerabilities. What are some of the vulnerabilities that happen in football, that happen in soccer? Like, what are some of the vulnerabilities that as a defender you kind of have to make a mental note about, be ready for, and you got to kind of step into those gaps? I mean, do you think that way? Is that what are some
you have to I think it's you have to always be a little bit I don't know if the right word's like pessimistic, but just what if this goes wrong? Let's say your team is in possession of the ball and it turns over quickly, right? You should already have been organized, know what could possibly happen, and try to kind of limit the attack from it getting too far along. So I think just being proactive, anything that you can do on the front end, it's going to save you, your team, from whether it's running 60 yards backwards towards your own goal on a counterattack, but it's also going to let you, continue to attack. So I think any way that you can communicate, limit, areas of the field where people are dangerous. So tracking, running, like Wondolowski, you're always going to have to know where he's at. That's something that, we would game plan all week. Hey, this is his movement. This is the way he likes to move in the box, pull back post. You have to pass him on. You have to have communication. You just have to always kind of be switched on and know that, you're going to have to concentrate for the entire game. So for me as a defender, I don't think there's any breaks in the game where maybe you're an attacking mid, a forward. I think you can get away with, kind of cruising through the game at times, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So sometimes it would be the opposing team's player that would kind of expose, maybe expose another teammate or expose a weakness in the system that you're playing. Is that what I'm kind of getting from you?
Yeah, because I mean each player you'd play against would bring a little bit of a different aspect to the game, but as a team you have to be solid defensively initially, and I think at the end of the day it's always this thing, this thing that I like to live by as a defender. You either let the ball get by you or the man get by you, but you can't let both get by you. So that's something that I always try to remember, and kind of, hey, if it's going to be one or the other getting by you, you can let it happen, but you don't let both happen.
Sure. Oh, that's good. I might need to frame that up somewhere in my office. Like, you can let the ball get by you or the man get by you, but not both. So I like that. Maybe I got to figure out I'm going to write that down. That'll be a future podcast. We'll talk through, what that looks like. Letting the enemy your opponent get beyond you, or get the ball get beyond you, but not both. So, well, hey, Jared, back to our text today. It says the Lord is a mighty defender, but then it goes on to say he's perfect and just in all his ways. So, I mean, tell me, for a defender, what is a perfect game? What at the end of a match, you face the opponent, however you've come out of it, like, what makes you sit back and think, hey, we got stuck in today. Hey, we did our jobs well. I did my job well. It was, for you, what is a perfect game as a defender?
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything, a perfect game. Maybe once or twice I feel like I've stepped off the field and, hey, I might not have put a foot wrong, right? And I think what that would look like is, obviously the simple thing is a shutout, so, you're not getting scored on. But then I think you did your job, and you really played well when you can look at the forward or the opponent you're playing against, and you can kind of sense that frustration, or you're kind of getting into their head a little bit. They're out of their game, and I think that as a defender, oh, okay, I think I've done my job tonight. Wondolowski's yelling at the ref for the 75th time tonight and getting frustrated, and hasn't had a sniff at goal all night. I think that's when hey, I might have done a good job tonight, for me. So I think that's kind of an easy way to put it, that that you've done a pretty good job there.
Well, as you said, like, I imagine those moments when you felt like you did a good job were kind of few and far between, right? I mean, it'd be amazing if you could be a perfect defender each and every game. That's impossible in today's game, right? I mean,
it happens. you
Yeah.
get scored on, it happens. You just have to kind of process it, move on, and you can't let it, linger there. But when you do have that perfect game and you get the shutout and, you sense the frustration from the opponent and, it's a good feeling. So it's definitely something that I enjoy doing.
And I think for us, Jared, like realizing that that the Lord is perfect, right? It helps for us to put a limitation on who we are, because just as you said, we get scored on. We let ourselves down. We let our teammates down. And I'm talking more than just football now. I'm talking about just in life. We fail. We mess up. We sin. We fall short. And there we are. We're picking the ball out of the back of the net, or we're getting yelled at by the goalkeeper because we let down on our job, or we had a slip, or we weren't thinking clearly. And so, but to think about God being perfect, to think about some of these other descriptors of God, that he's just in all his ways, that he's faithful and true, he does what is right and fair. I mean, those are descriptors of God that I think here's where the metaphor for football kind of falls short. I think, there are fair players, right? I mean, there are guys that are really good at the game and they play it fairly. They don't take cheap shots and those other things. But defenders, it's a little different, right? Sometimes you got to get what they call that professional foul, right? Did you ever get any of those professional foul yellow cards?
Oh yeah, sometimes you have to pull a jersey or stop a counterattack, and I don't think it's cheating the game, but I think you just know you have to do it, and you get penalized accordingly. But it happens. So I wouldn't say that I was a dirty player or anything like that, but definitely when it needed to happen, you'd have to make it work.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That honesty is really refreshing, right? Because I think sometimes I've met players who came from a faith background, and there's an extreme pressure, I think, to figure out your faith when you're competing in a high level, elite level sport like football or soccer, or in other parts and aspects of the game, because there's these moments where there's a sort of professionalism to the game where things are kind of it's a guy who goes down and he grabs the ball and walks 5 yards before he tosses. There's those little things that slow down the game that's kind of generally accepted, although if you're the opposing team and you're behind, you're not accepting it, right? You're going after it a little bit. So that's pretty tough. But and I think, too, there's a unique aspect to the sport of football because it's a team sport where you have to rely on your teammates at other times. Like you mentioned having Axel and Miller and Birchie, that whole group with Cronin and Azira in 2016. And I remember that was a fantastic year. That was a year, like, I thought, man, we're destined to go back to the Cup. It was amazing, and we were so close that year. But Jared, what's it like to have to rely on teammates at times? Because I don't think everyone in every sport will necessarily appreciate. I mean, sure, maybe the tennis player might feel like it's a solo sport, but they've got kind of a team behind them, right? They've got coaches and trainers and et cetera. But football and basketball, some of these other soccer, these sports are very different because you have to rely on teammates at times. You have to know that they have your back and you have theirs. So what does that look like? What does it look like to put your faith and trust in a teammate? I mean, from a very practical, pragmatic side, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think it's, I think that's what makes soccer too, just such a unique sport because it's a group of 11. Really, it's a group of 11 working together, right, to be on the same page. And, you obviously have your smaller groups within the game, but for example, playing beside a center back who helps and compliments you, I think that's something that, goes a long way. So whether I'm playing beside, someone who's faster than me, but maybe I do more kind of reading the game and putting everybody in position, I think finding that balance of complimenting each other is just going to help the team. So again, I think it comes down to being confident in one another, but also everybody being on the same page and understanding kind of what's needed and again, it's just a mentality of making sure, hey, this person messes up, I have their back. I'm not going to, be upset that they mess up. I'm just going to do what I can to help, the team at this moment when I'm needed. So I think as a defender, that's always kind of been and has to be a mentality. And, I think it's something that, again, being a defender, it's more about a mentality versus, anything else. At least that's from my perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great perspective. And in fact, just to kind of translate it back again, what you're talking about there, Jared, is you're talking about faith. And having faith in your teammates doesn't come by just playing in these massive one-off games, once or twice a week. Having faith in your teammates comes from relationship. It comes from the daily work of being in a training session, of going through preseason together, of going through the highs and lows of a season together. And so friends, you're listening today, what I want to translate that into is faith in God. Our faith in God is translated. It doesn't just happen in the critical life crisis moments. It doesn't just happen when we face things like coronavirus, or we face things like 9/11, or we face these big momentous times. Faith in God is developed through a daily routine, a daily relationship, a daily conversation, a daily walk and work together. And then when we come to a passage like Deuteronomy 32:4, and we read, "The Lord is your mighty defender, perfect and just in all his ways. Your God is faithful and true. He does what is right and fair." He doesn't just show up in that moment. He's been showing up throughout all that time, and that gives us the foundation of confidence, the foundation of faith that we can have, just Jared, just like you had to have in your teammates, and just like we have to have in God. Well,
yep.
Yeah, go on, Jared.
I mean, hey, you can't be defeated, right? If God's your defender, He's your protector, and I think it's a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah, in Romans it says, if God is for us, who can be against us? It's like, if He's on our side, right? And if He's on our side in life, like who can really come against you? There is no one, because He's going to be that one who's the defender. And defending isn't just a passive thing, as you talked about, Jared. There's a sense of organizing and communicating and getting people here and there, and He steps into those places where we're vulnerable and weak. And Jared, you may not have the height that I remember Axel had, and so you play and you complement to those things, right? And it might be Axel taking a taller player, and it might be you taking a more physical player or a speedier player, right? It could have been those different things. And so God works in those ways too in our own lives to be our mighty defender. Well, hey, today I want to leave us with an adapted prayer from Ray Simpson's Celtic Blessings. It's entitled, "God Be With You." And so I've rewritten it a little bit and adapted it for us. You can find a link to this great little book in the episode notes. But here's the prayer. God be with you today and forever. Jesus be in you to pardon and tether. Spirit be on you and leave you never. In the name of the all-powerful Father, in the name of the all-loving Son, in the name of the all-pervading Spirit, Father, command all spirits of fear to leave you. Christ, break the power of unforgiven sin in you. Spirit, set you free from dependence upon human ties, that you may be as free as the wind, as soft as a sheep's wool, as straight as an arrow, and that you may journey into the heart of God, our great defender. Amen. Well, hey, this is Rev Brad
and Jared Watts
coming to you from the Touchline.